And that would be, let everybody know, and then the mayor would ask the person, oh, you know, please wrap it up as your special events.
Okay.
So I'm sure this was, you know, a long time ago, before cell phones. Mayor probably said, turn it to 5 minutes and let it start to like for each person.
Maybe that was the first time legally reading was mayor that.
Yeah. He brought it the first time he was right here.
Minutes spare.
This is at the end.
Yeah, so.
I'm such a space hog.
It's okay.
Well, you're Mr. 2 foot by 3 foot plans.
I know.
Yeah, you can't even fit a 2x3 set of plans. Well, you'd have to move the mic.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Done already, you know?
Yeah, and a few meetings where I'm crinkling.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know why they don't. It's only 11 by 17 and get it over with. And they provide those ginormous plans.
We've been asking for one in the 11 by 17s, haven't we?
11 by 17 is fine. I just like paper. Scaled 11 by 17, I'm good.
To scale.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yep. You can't make a
Stickler.
24 by 36 down to 11 by 17. It's not a half scale. It's a weird scale, right?
Right, so set it accordingly.
Yeah. So you set your sheets up to be 22 by 34. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm. Probably some architect.
Right.
did it.
All right, I'll call to order the Macedonia Planning Commission for June 20th, 2022. Can we get a roll call?
Mr. Westbrook?
Here.
Mr. Shivon?
Here.
Mr. Wallenhurst?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
And Mr. Cox will be absent tonight.
First item is approval of the May 16th minutes. Anybody have any comments?
Motion to approve.
Motion.
I'll second.
All right, no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. First applicant tonight, sign erectors for Coles. That's why you come on up. If you want to, sorry, just grab one of these chairs and drag it up.
Sorry.
You can bring it up to the table if you want to.
And
We like to make the first guy do all the
Better a
work.
little bit because we're going to be doing some exchanging of paperwork here today.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So planning, place some signage, pretty straightforward. Mr. France, do you want to go over your comments?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Report dated June 3rd, and yeah, it's just updating the sign. Looks like primarily to include the Sephora line, which is you're seeing across the board. Lots of communities are seeing the sign change. In this case, area-wise, the sign is acceptable. There's just one minor item and one a little more of a discussion point, I would say. The side returns are required to be bronze, and they're shown as black, I believe. And the maximum height of a sign cannot exceed 72 inches in height. It can be on 2 lines, but can't exceed 72 inches. The current one's sitting at 60, which I believe was obviously designed according to the Commons criteria. With this addition, it does exceed the 72. So for it to move forward, they'll need to revise it to meet the 72-inch height requirement.
Which we started doing. We finally got the revised drawings here today showing the color change. I think that there was a bit of confusion because they went with a 4-foot Coles and a 24-inch Sephora, but they didn't account for the space in between. And actually, I think it's because you have 90 inches called out here as the total of the, but you didn't account for that space either. We called your office this afternoon just to clarify, and the space is counted in your 72 inches.
Chris, the zoning inspector. said that.
So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna leave the Coles at 4 foot. We're gonna reduce the Sephora to 20 inches, and we'll put a 4-inch space between the two words, hitting that 72 inches. So I mean, like I said, we had started a new set of drawings here, but I need to change the dimension on the Sephora for it, and then you'll be all ready to go.
So you're going to comply with the 72 inch is what
Yeah,
you're saying, so.
We would have complied except for that space in between there, so.
So if the commission finds that acceptable, you can approve it subject to and administratively can confirm.
Anybody else have any comments back there?
Nothing, Chairman?
Do you guys have any questions?
Do not.
No. Okay, well, so you will change it to the bronze too.
Yes,
It's already shown on there.
like I said, here's a set of drawings that's been changed. It's just that this Sephora has to change to 20 inches
Okay.
now, and then other than that, it's.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the revised plans to be approved administratively that show the bronze returns and the overall height to be 72 inches.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you. Thanks. Next is L&P Architecture for the IHOP. So here, come on up. Can I get your name for the record?
Chris, not on here. Paul, on vacation.
All right. Just want to give us a brief overview of what you're showing here tonight.
Yeah, it was the relocation of the dumpster area toward the back section of the property, back right rear section of the property. So we had sent an updated site plan showing that it impacts an existing parking location. And then there may have been some confusion on the drawings about what the gates will actually be. The gates are a metal gate, not a chain linked gate. It's a standard IHOP national spec. So masonry wall, stone cap, and then we can have that, but a metal gate that you cannot see through. So that's what we're here for, is the relocation of the dumpster.
Mr. Francis, go ahead for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, report date June 3rd. So it does look like, so this is being relocated again. It's been previously relocated prior to approval 2 times. This will be the 3rd time. I think it's a better location.
Yeah.
Generally, is it losing 1 parking space? Is that 1? So which, as I had stated in my report, if it's losing the 1 space, they're still compliant using the permissible reduction factor in the code. And I do think it is a better spot. The metal gate, so that's good. I think what it shows, you said it shows it on sheet A1 now, or A1.8, is that what you're?
1.8, correct.
Yeah, and may I see the?
Yeah.
Are those, is it a solid
Yes, it's a
solid panel? And then, so I think that's fine. I think that matches the adjoining property.
Yep.
But then the issue is the landscaping. I'm not sure where that sits. There was, looks like significant disruption to the landscaping, what's on the plans.
We informed the owner that they need to get a landscape architect involved to get this taken care of and resolved.
Yeah, so the city's asked for that for a bit. And it is a bit frustrating because it's on the applicant, like the city does a really good job of being business friendly and, you know, they approve plans subject to, it's on the applicant to then provide that information to the city. And it felt a little bit like it was being ignored because it shows a few boxwood shrubs and like all landscaping's gone.
Right.
I think there's an understanding that some of it's going to be removed for the construction, but it's pretty clear that I think it was all removed for the most part.
Unbeknownst to us, so yeah.
Yeah, and
it's on the owner. You know,
not shooting the applicant. I get it. Yeah, they need to But I think for the city's sake, there's a number of outstanding items that needed to be worked through. So appreciate the gate being proper. And I would, for the chair, I would mark that as an exhibit to the submission this evening. Just so it's clear on the record of what's been approved. And then, the other items do need to be addressed.
Right, so like I said, we let the owner know that he needs to get the landscape architect involved and get a drawing together so that we can submit that. Have that service in-house. He's given them plenty of options to go ahead and get that, taken care of. The other option in the memorandum was associated with the site lighting, and the owner fully intends to replace all the existing light poles to match what's happening with the Raising Cane adjacent next to it in the current location. So it's a more contemporary fixture. I think it's a RAB fixture that they have. So that's their full intent.
Okay, so I would do, Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend that you make it subject to those things if you're find that acceptable. But you may want to also add that a performance guarantee be added to the stipulation. And it's on the building department a little bit. They have to, if they accept the bond, I would rather see a letter of credit or a cash bond and not have to track down bonds. But I just feel like performance, it's probably necessary and would make it subject to that if you find that acceptable.
So they would, so you said building department work out what that is. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if the building commissioner finds that acceptable.
Right, I'd be fine with that. We could do like a letter of credit with them.
Yeah.
That's probably the better route.
Yeah, it seems like there just needs to be some performance in place to ensure that the plans are submitted, we button up these items, and the work is guaranteed.
Any other comments?
Yeah, just one, Chairman, and it's just a minor issue. I didn't prepare a formal memo on it for that reason. Some of the other businesses along that strip, the dumpster is actually located a little bit further north than the location you're proposing there.
Okay.
The location that you guys are proposing somewhat impacts or potentially could impact that interconnect driveway that runs across the back of all those businesses. Now, that driveway really doesn't get a whole lot of use anymore. I guess I'm just wondering if it's worthwhile to push the location to the north a little bit. And I see the chairman has the drawing on his monitor right there. There's kind of a weird jog in that interconnect driveway.
Is that actually curved? Do you know? Or is that...
Yeah, there's a weird jog, I think, as you enter now it's going to be the IHOP property. I mean, and this is by no means a deal killer, certainly,
I think
but.
what we're looking at is the serviceability of it from the vehicle that's going to be taking
From the
out
trash collection, yeah.
And not impacting tremendous amount of spots, because if we do move into the north, I think it then becomes a little bit more difficult to navigate from a vehicular standpoint for the sanitation vehicle.
Really? Okay. Yeah, see, there you go. Yeah, it's just striped that way. The pavement doesn't actually curve or offset. Yeah, so, yeah, you see it there, Chairman, but you see.
Behind the curb, the doors will swing out into the.
Yeah, that's my point. I mean, like I say, it's not the end of the world, but it might be better off if the location was slid a little bit to the north. And if you, Chairman, I'm sure if you scroll east or west there on your Google Earth view, you'll see that some of the others, the dumpsters outside of the interconnect road. Yeah, there you go, right there, Raising Cane's.
Is there any setback issues or anything? I mean, it looks like Raising Cane's goes.
I'm assuming whatever Raising Cane's did conformed.
how wide are those doors? Yeah. Sorry. What's the stuff you can't see? So,
Meeting.
Good job, Joe.
Thank you.
so the other, looks like the pavement kind of really
Yeah.
goes like right up here. So
Got
the
it.
front of the
Yeah.
enclosures in the pavement, but the doors, that's not really
Right.
protected, I guess, or, you know.
Well, if we lost another, you know,
No, you can slide it back.
okay.
Yeah, I think you say slide it
Slide
back
it
this
back.
way,
Oh, yeah,
like the width of the, you know,
got
the
it,
length.
okay.
So that.
That's
back
fine, if
enough
we're in
for
line with
doors.
Raising Cane, that's completely fine. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think that, you guys
Setback
see what we're
standpoint.
saying
Are you talking about pushing it into that grass area?
Yeah, yeah.
So moving it
yeah,
here, because the pavement actually goes straight up to the,
And then there's another dumpster for the auto parts store right off that drawing. Correct. There as well too. It's that-
Yeah.
so how far do we wanna go, because as
I
long
would
as we're within the setback.
Because you're not currently showing the drawing drawn properly, I would say you've got to at least get it back past that the doors don't impede upon
Okay.
the drive aisle.
Okay.
yeah, those doors.
I think Scott's right.
Are those doors like 3 feet or something?
Yeah.
I'm guessing. So it's probably like 3 plus 3 a little bit.
Because I don't think, again, can we go back to the arrow for a
You have to
second?
assume Raising Cane's is violating a setback. So.
Yeah, so they can get the, so the doors open
The
and it's
back of there
still,
is almost lined up with the parts store, it's closed. The parts store might be a little bit further forward, but
I think as long as it's
Still okay with
protected
that.
by
I agree.
that curb line.
That's fine.
yeah, as long as that, I would say that, I would say that as long as those doors don't open, they can pass that curb line that's right there.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thanks.
Mhm.
Anything? Nope. All right, anybody else got any questions? Does anyone want to make a motion or want me to take a stab? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve with the modification that the dumpster enclosure is moved back enough that the doors, when open, aren't impeding past the curb line. Also making it contingent upon administrative review of the landscaping and the lighting, a resolution of the landscape and lighting issues, and that the city require a performance guarantee to be worked out with the building department prior to this work commencing. Does that sound?
Can we do that one more time?
I
It's
forget.
on the recording.
I'm so
no.
sorry.
Approval with modification that the dumpster is moved back so that the open doors don't impede,
Right.
and then contingent on administrative approval of the landscaping and lighting, and that the city work out a performance guarantee with the applicant. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Chris?
And I think I heard, Mr. Chairman, your motion that that's a landscape plan by a landscape architect, and also that the outstanding items from the previous final plan approval are also addressed on a plan update that's provided administratively.
Yes, make sure that Susan heard what I
What was
said.
that, second part of that?
That the previous outstanding items from the final plan approval are addressed on a revised plan provided to administration.
Thank you. Any more discussion on that?
Yeah.
All right, you guys, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the brick samples.
Oh, yeah.
Take care.
Next, industrial pump equipment for a monument sign.
Yeah.
Welcome. Let's get this signed here and then we'll. so yours is pretty simple. A new monument sign. Is there anything special you want to tell us about it, or?
It's a replacement sign for the existing sign that was there, was removed. The sandstone on the top was cracked away from the brick. And I met with the owners, and obviously cost-wise, if they could have saved anything, they would have. But, so what we proposed was a new monument sign, standard construction. It's aluminum sign. The face of the sign is aluminum, it's routed. There'll be half-inch push-through acrylic lettering to give it some dimension. In the evening, only the lettering will light up.
Okay. Mr. France, you want to go over your comments?
Sure. My report's dated June 3rd, and it is pretty simple insofar as a monument sign change. I wasn't aware that the sandstone was cracked, but area-wise, the sign is fine. It really comes down to the aesthetics. This issue has come up recently with a number of monument signs in other applications, and the commission did not permit this approach. They required using a brick base and making it a little more aesthetically decorative sign. So I think that's something that the commission should consider.
Any other comments from anybody else back here?
I mean, the only thing I would say to that is obviously the brick is an additional cost for the tenant, which doesn't really play in this scenario. All of the neighboring tenants, there's a kind of a hodgepodge of signage on that road. Direct tenants, there's about 12 signs that I took pictures of, and I think 4 of them do have some type of brick base. The other ones are either similar to my construction or just wooden. And most likely, even a brick base, if we put a brick base in to replace the bottom aluminum cover, it's going to be covered with some type of landscaping at some point. So.
We was recently looked at a sign on the side of the street, didn't we?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what's the most recent one, because we've had similar.
Stilgan?
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, we've been trying to be pretty consistent. Some of the ones that you see out there may be somewhat old, or they slipped in and didn't really go through the right process potentially, but like, right across the street, you got Ohio State waterproofing. I know they've put in a couple of them because they came in with original sign, and then they wanted to have their dynamic message, the message sign. They've got that brick base. We've given a little bit of leeway sometimes with the actual material, not so much recently, but older. We've things that look like brick. I'm looking. I'm not sure how. These are pretty recent. 21 Chicago title down the street looks like it's either a brick stone or it looks like it. But there are some. There's some wooden signs, but they've either been there since prior to us kind of cracking down and trying to get more consistent. But Silgan, I think, is out a little bit farther to the east. I forget what they were called before, but we went around a couple of times with those guys. Eventually, coming to that conclusion. Key in, that was a different.
Yeah, these are just right within that general vicinity, which I would consider neighbors. Like I said, there's a lot of different designs.
There's a couple of them out there that look pretty bad.
Yeah.
That we're hoping that someday they come in, they want to do something, and then we can require them to do the right thing, do something more permanent looking, something with some substance. We encourage the landscaping, but it doesn't have to be so extensive that it covers up that base that you're looking at.
Yeah, it's not going to take much to cover your signs. It's only 5 foot wide, base is 30 inches tall.
Well, if you're concerned about the base being covered up by landscaping, then you would essentially end up covering up the numbers that you're showing there though too, so those numbers seem to be coming out way too. 'Cause that would be the height for the corner that base would be at.
Right.
So I think that's kind of, I agree, I think that bottom has to be a stone material.
Unless you guys feel differently. I'd kind of like to stick with what we've been sticking, we've been asking everybody else to do as they come in.
No, we get precedence if there more than one time.
So I think we'd like to see something with a brick base or a brick lookalike or stone of some sort, to go along with that. I'm sure if you had some ideas, you could run it past the administration, they could let you know if they think it's something that could be approved.
Okay.
Is the existing stone still, or is the existing base still out there, or is that completely gone? So
It wasn't something that we felt, I mean, the sandstone was, you could walk up and push it over. Obviously, the initial idea was to try to put something on top of that, but it wasn't stable, so the owner had it removed.
I know that the TNT exterminating guys came in, they wanted to do something much less substantial, get the brick columns on that, there's a base, kind of did a little bit there. And most of the stuff that I can think of that's come through recently, we've had them do a similar sign. I've seen some of these older ones that are the 2 blue posts, but they've been there. I've never seen from M&M Welding that hasn't been here since I've been on the commission. It's quite a while. Auto body place, those are older signs. They've been here since the dawn of time. So I would make a motion to table this to the July meeting for a resubmission. Is there a second?
A second.
Is that appropriate, Mr. Frank?
You made a motion to continue it to your July meeting. I think that's fine.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Sorry. All right, the oversized garage at 10055 Valley View Road. Thanks for bringing up the second chair.
Good evening.
Good evening.
how are you?
Good.
Just want to give us a lowdown on what's changed.
Sure, just introduce ourselves. I'm David White. No, okay.
I'm sorry, I should have asked. I'm sorry.
David Pike from Paul Pike Builders, here representing the owner, Joe Nysip, at address 10055 Valley View Road. And sorry, being here for the second time, but I'm gonna throw Joe under the bus. He has designer's remorse and realized he can't get 2 vehicles parked in the garage, being 12 foot wide. So we redesigned the garage, 27 feet wide, shortened a little bit to 35 feet. And now I think Joe's gonna be happy. Now requesting same structure basically, but reconfigured a little bit different. It is going to be a little bit larger, square footage wise, but it is primarily to be able to get both vehicles into the garage.
Okay. All right. Mr. French, you want to go over your comments?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report dated June 5th. So this was a previous approval. The Planning Commission approved a 740 square foot detached garage, oversized garage. And that was done after a required conditional zoning certificate was issued and a public hearing was provided. The current proposal is for a 945 square foot garage. The height of the structure is 19.5 feet tall, or 19 feet 6 inches. It was previously 22 feet 4 inches. So you still have a height issue that you'll need to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for. I think you
We went through this last time, and because of the size of the property, I thought it was discussed that we didn't have to do that.
Not to my knowledge, I think it was part of your approval that it needed Board of Zoning Appeals.
I look back at the minutes just to refresh my memory, and that was part of our motion was to that back.
Sorry, that's all right.
And I'm assuming it's still a 10-foot setback.
Yes, on the back left corner, we're still gonna have 10 foot, and to have a topo here, showing how they did it to the building part.
So, and that's fine. It adheres to the setback requirement. So the Plan Commission could approve it subject to, and administration could look at that setback just for compliance. And then I think Mr. Gelati last time opined that he was fine with the gutters and downspouts. I'm assuming it's the same thing, but it's a comment in my report about stormwater management. And then I think last time the commission did have a restriction, no businesses or residential rental is permitted, and I think the owner submitted to that requirement. And that would be a condition of the approval. And I can't remember if typically we require that be a deed restriction recorded with the county. I feel like that's what we talked about last time.
We did, yes.
And so I just recommend the same thing for this revised plan.
Just making a note here. All right, thank you. Mr. Delaney?
Yeah, just one thing, Chairman. Last time you guys were here, it wasn't a part of your submittal, but you did bring to the meeting a copy of a drawing that showed the downspout storm sewer connections tying into the existing piping towards the front of the yard. I would just ask that a similar drawing be made a part of this application as well, because the one that I saw that was submitted here for Planning Commission didn't show that this time, so. Yeah, just to ensure we catch the gutters and pipe everything in the same manner, so.
Mr. Rudy, you got anything else?
I have nothing to add.
You guys got questions? Yeah. I'm okay with the conditions that you've got.
The next one, if I get to go to get out.
For the July is June 24th.
Two more days.
Yeah. Mr. Fike, I'll contact you tomorrow about that.
Okay, thank you.
So if you get, unless you guys have any questions, all right, I'll make a motion to approve condition that BZA approval for the height. Also, no businesses or rentals are allowed in the garage. Would like that to be a deed restriction recorded with the county. I believe that was it.
Landscaping too, note about landscaping. I believe I'd seen that in Brian's letter.
Is on the last part of my report. I just felt it was, the provided setback is there, but it's still pretty close to the property line. So I felt some landscaping would be appropriate, but it's up to the commission.
There's a garage right next on the other side of them. His neighbor's garage is 10 feet the other way.
Let's close out this motion. So is there a second on that? And then we can always take it back or something. We have too much more discussion.
I'll second.
Okay. So I do kind of remember talking about that the last one.
Front of his garage, if I recall correctly, is in line with the neighbor's garage.
Oh, that's right, yeah, because it's going roughly in the same spot.
Here's,
It's that
Yeah, the white-
middle one.
it's white is the neighbor's garage, as you see right now. His if you recall, this was because of a fire and the existing
Right.
structure burned down. So his siding in this picture hadn't been replaced yet. I don't know if he's done that yet. But you can see his garage is pretty much in line with that garage, 10 feet off the property line on the back left corner. His will be deeper than this garage. This garage, I would guess, is probably about 20, 24 feet deep.
So looking west.
Yes, I am on the east side of this property looking west. I probably have a closer picture. There's a nice picture of fire. I'm south looking north. I'm south looking north. This is where the existing garage was. It doesn't show, well, you can see the neighbor's garage, the back corner right there. Let's see if I have something better. This is in the backyard looking south towards the neighbor's house, and the garage is right here, and the neighbor's, you know, it's close enough that it's siding.
Yeah, we see that they're right next to each other.
Yeah,
It's kind of garage city over
That's
there,
why
right there.
It is.
I just saw Brian's comment, so I thought I'd bring it up, or remember Brian's comment on it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, normally if
If they were.
that guy didn't have two garages right there, right by it, I would say, yeah, maybe we need to, yeah, hide it a little bit, but it's kind of, yeah, kind of garage city.
Yeah.
Side by side.
Yeah. Um, I'd be okay with it, I think as it is. You guys are. All right, so we got a motion. We have a second. Any more discussion?
Yeah, we got, he said we had a second.
We have, yeah, no, sorry. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, so good luck with the ECA, hopefully.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
You can probably leave it here, I think. You may need it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Goddard School. You have your choice of seats.
My name is Jim Lindley, so I'm the owner of the Goddard School.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and give us a overview? I think you've been in here for this once preliminarily, right? Or maybe not? Maybe
Maybe the
just-
first time.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, we built a 8,000 square foot school in 2007, and it's basically comprised of classrooms for early childhood education and childcare. Children from about age of 3 months to about 6 years old. We'd like to add on to the building and add a multi-purpose room so the kids have an indoor play space. This weather in this area is not conducive to children being out many days. It's either raining or it's snowing or it's just nasty. And so the kids don't have a place where they can run around and kick balls and play. So we'd like to add a multi-purpose room to the back. One of the issues with doing that is it doesn't make you any money, but it's a huge cost to build it. So what we'd like to do is add 2 classrooms on the sides of the building that we can house toddlers in. And right now in Macedonia, there is no availability of toddler care in the city. So if someone who has a child at 18 months to 3 years old, all the spots are taken, so they virtually have to go out of town to find childcare for toddlers. So it meets a couple of needs that, you know, my parents would like to see their children have an indoor play space. And I think there's a need for more space for childcare for toddlers. So it's about a 3,000 square foot addition. We go on the back of our school and then out on the sides to within 10 feet of the property line on both sides.
Okay. Okay. Mr. France, you want to go over
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reports dated June 5th. So the proposal is for about 25 by 141 foot addition. So about 3,534 square feet roughly. The original building I had at approximately 8,100 square feet. So total will be about 11,600 roughly square feet total. Property's situated on 1.2 acres in the B2 Community Shopping District. So daycares have been previously deemed to be appropriate in the B2 district, so there's no concern with the use. So I just looked at the site plan. I first brought up about the setback issue. sounds like from talking to the building department, the applicant's already been to the BZA to get a variance for the setback. So that's the setback issue is a moot point. Parking wise, the requirement, there needs to be some parking for the 3,500 square foot addition. I understand that it's a multi-purpose room, but some parking's needed, certainly for the classroom space. No additional parking is proposed. I'm not sure if you can get more parking, but some parking needs to be provided. Now, what that is, I'm not necessarily 100% sure. I don't know the breakdown of that multi-purpose space, how much of the 3,500 square feet is, kickball area versus classroom area. So that's an item needs to be talked through.
Can we discuss that one now, or?
That's sure, it's up to the
I
chairman.
have a lot of documentation on that. I don't know if you'd like to see it.
Let's just let them go through all these items, then we'll
Okay.
come back at him if that's okay. Just let them keep flowing.
The proposed site plan indicates a fence is proposed, one currently exists. And then it looks like in that rear yard space, there's mechanical equipment that sits on the ground. So just not sure where that's going or how that's gonna be treated. So we need to have some detail on an updated site plan that addresses these features that exist currently. And I think, and the applicant will speak to this, I think he stated in an email some information about the fencing. So I'm sure we can come back to that issue. With regard to the sanitary sewer, it looks like the proposal is to realign the sanitary sewer through the existing landscape buffer mound in the back. So I think some discussion has to occur with that. That landscape buffer mound was set up originally when the development was put in as a way, again, to buffer the adjoining residential to the north. And so there needs to be discussion about that mound and what's going to happen and how that's dealt with. Stormwater management, just a comment that revised plans need to indicate how stormwater will be handled. The engineer will speak to that. And then lighting, landscaping, those are typically provided on the site plan. They need to be addressed on a future plan submittal. Real conceptual at this point does give us a general understanding of the request. So I'd say once more detailed plans come, it's likely an approvable situation, but do need to deal with the parking and then how that some of those existing conditions are handled, and then the sanitary sewer relocation.
Okay. Okay, we want to jump back, then I'll get the other guys' comments in a second, but yeah, want to jump back to the parking?
Sure. Everybody wants a copy of this? My school's currently full. We usually operate full. So what I had someone do is to go out and we actually counted, we have 38 parking spots. So we did a 15-minute time count of how many cars were actually in the parking lot. In the morning and the afternoon, that's when parents drop off and pick up. You can see, we have about 15 teachers that work in the building. And so you can see the number of teacher cars and when they arrive and leave. They don't all come in at 7 o'clock when they open. They don't all leave at 6 o'clock when we close. And then parents drop off. Typical drop off time for parents about 10 minutes. So you can see in the column with the parent cars, the most parent cars we had in this study in the parking lot at any one time was 7 cars. So you can see I've got between 20 and 25 available parking spots at any given time during the day.
So your students aren't driving cars?
Yes. So, we're adding 2 classrooms. Given that with 8 classrooms, my average is 7 cars and parents in the parking lot, I think we've got plenty of parking to cover this.
preparing for that, I was kind of thinking the same thing, but that's not under us, right? That would still, we still would have to go to zoning to get a variance on that.
I can't find anything in your code that talks about childcare. You've got churches, you've got restaurants. I cannot find anything that has a code with childcare.
But does it fall under, because it's in that,
It would fall into
B2?
the business, the B2 district. So
that's
that's
just
just,
kind of a catch-all, so
yeah,
you have a count on that, Mr.
I've been past that parking lot a couple of times. It's out and I've seen it more packed than what code this is alluding to right here.
That was last week, and the school is full. Here's another one that I'll provide. This is done by Goddard Corporate. It's more here. And this shows comparable data. They look at it a little bit different, where they show the number of cars in the parking lot. And the blue space is the available parking.
I went by there today, about, I don't know, about 10 a.m. There was only a handful of cars in the parking lot. I was just, my bigger concern is drop off and pick up. I have experienced drop off and pick up there before, I've never seen it completely full either, but I still think that still has to be a zoning variance.
Yeah, it
Whether
does.
I agree with it or not, right?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know that we can give relief, but I don't think we can
We can.
as a planning
I
commission.
can show this to the zoning guys. They said it's not our issue.
I think it's because we're all of our hands are tied because of the code. And then you have to go to
You talked to the board of zoning guys, you're saying?
I was there with this data.
okay, so you went to the BZA. They denied your
No.
request or?
No, the parking was not, they didn't apply for a variance for the parking. But Mr. Lindley did talk with the board
Okay, discussion.
briefly about the parking issue. But the parking issue,
So he did it as like a non-agenda item essentially, so they
But
could
he-
vote on.
yeah, Mr. Lindley actually made similar presentation to the Board of Appeals and included the parking in some of that information when he discussed the variance request for the setbacks. But they didn't render any decisions on that. They couldn't. You need a public hearing to file for a variance.
Okay,
and-
that's
and-
not-
Because it was just a discussion with
When I go
the
to this, I
but it
understand
still
the
would fall under that.
park you're putting in.
Yeah. Yeah, he he raised the issue and they said that, we can't handle that because that's not on our agenda.
Okay, so
Brian,
it
do you know what this
wasn't,
is classified as in terms of a building use? Like, I know it's daycare, but is it, are we classifying it as almost like school or classrooms?
I believe it's educational.
Education?
Yeah, so the closest would be educational, one space for each 6 seats in assembly rooms. Assembly is like a building code term, so,
Assembly would be that multi-purpose area at this point.
and the toddler rooms too.
Right.
So, and I don't know that there's a way for the commission to not require parking. I think what the gentleman submitted is, good justification for the Board of Zoning Appeals, but I just don't know how the commission gets around that issue. I don't think you can.
so I think the BZA didn't necessarily deny you. They could
just
not,
couldn't act.
they couldn't act on it because they weren't officially, it wasn't officially applied to that request. So, as of now, we can't, we can't. Move on to some of the other issues. So you're looking at fence.
There's no additional fence. There's a fence in the back of the school now, it's gonna be taken out.
Okay. So the fence that goes down the side, it'll still go down the side, it's gonna attach to the building, is
Yes.
that, okay. About the sanitary sewer issue, maybe this is, I don't know, did you have comments about any of this?
Yeah, I can speak to that, Mr. Chairman. I guess really 2 things to follow up from Brian's comments. One, with regard to stormwater, this property is tributary to the regional pond for the landowners association here on Alexandria Way. So stormwater's already been accounted for, so that's not a concern. The question, though, that has been brought up is the sanitary sewer, and that's really my only concern here with this plan as well. Obviously, the drawing submitted shows the sanitary sewer being relocated or offset to the north, which is really the only thing to do. But it does raise two questions. That drawing, Chairman, you just had it on your screen there. It shows that some part of the mound will be impacted by the new sanitary sewer installation. So I think it's important that when complete, that the mound the grading be put back the way that it is existing today, as well as the vegetation that's on the mound. I think there's different vegetation, pine trees and other trees that exist on that mound. So I think it would be important to be noted that all get put back the way it currently exists today. And then the only other item pertaining to the sewer, of course, the sewer is owned by Summit County, not City of Macedonia. You're probably aware of that. So as the sewer easement shifts to follow the new sewer, of course, you'd have to have the easement revised with Summit County. And I would be hopeful that Summit County would be acceptable to the mound and the vegetation overlapping with or being on top of the easement. I can't speak for Summit County, but I guess that'd be between yourself, and it looks like you've got Matt Weber here doing this for you. So I would.
We've gone to the county on it several times.
Oh, have you? What feedback have they given you?
They're waiting for the variances from Macedonia.
Okay.
But they're looking upon it as favorable.
Okay.
The line only goes about a foot into the mound.
Okay.
So you're going to have a slope that goes up.
Mm-hmm.
So we have two options. One is we can put a small retaining wall
Mm-hmm.
and keep the ground flat over it,
Mm-hmm.
or we can just slope it back and it's got a foot of slope.
Okay. Yeah. So if Summit County's, agreeable to what you're doing and they execute the new easement location, we would just ask for a copy of that signed easement from Summit County. So we know on our end that the county is comfortable. So that's all, Chairman.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Sorry, just wanted to go back to the sanitary sewer discussion and then the fence. Your plans show a proposed fence, so is that, well, it says PROP fence. So is that not proposed? Is this an old plan?
Along the west side of the building. Is what he's referring to.
Yeah, east and west,
Yeah.
connects up in front.
Oh,
Maybe
it's
it's relocated.
There's an existing fence on both sides that goes back and it would attach at the corner of the proposed addition.
Yeah, so maybe it's just an error in the title proposed fence that's existing.
Yeah, it's just, there's an existing fence there now.
The line type looks like it might be
Yeah, it's
existing.
for the playground area, right?
Yeah. It's not a proposed fence, it's there.
Yeah, you typed
I thought it was.
you typed the wrong
It could be.
thing. Yeah, but the line
I
type
think, yeah, I think it's
kind of
not
looks like it's
proposed.
existing.
Yeah, so they probably just labeled it wrong.
Yeah.
It's not, it's there now.
Yeah, and then you're just taking off the rear piece, it's gonna tie into the new
Yeah, I don't
addition.
need any fence in the back.
Yeah, and then, I don't see how it's only going 1 foot into the mound. You mentioned 1 foot
Yeah,
into
it's
the mound.
about what it is. We've been out there and staked it out and it's barely into the mound.
It shows your mound is, I don't know, it looks like it's,
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Brian. For what it's worth, according to the drawing here, especially along the east property line, it looks like the
Yeah.
new sanitary manhole is, halfway up the mound, maybe about 4 foot in elevation
I
change,
don't think it's
so.
that far into it.
Okay, so maybe what needs to happen is, Matt Weber needs to verify the topography there. Because if you look in the sanitary structure schedule in the upper right corner, for manhole B, the one I think that Brian is alluding to, the rim elevation's 1033.5, where the rest of the manhole elevations are down around 28 or 29, so it's indicating a 4 or 5 foot elevation change from one manhole to the next, so. Which again, and maybe that's acceptable, but everybody just needs to be aware and certainly acceptable to some counties, so.
I figured I would handle that when we get, go for final approval. The county wants to know if we have variances, because we're taking it in, certain order.
Yeah, yeah, if you get short circuited early on, then the county doesn't want to bother with it.
Yep.
I got you.
So I'm a little confused about the county wanting variances. What do they,
Well, no, they just wanted to, it's my perspective, it doesn't pay to apply if I don't have variances to put the building to begin.
sure, that makes sense, your perspective, but the county's not
I
waiting.
think they don't want to
for
waste
They
their
don't wanna
time.
waste their
Yeah, they don't want to
They
move
don't wanna-
forward
If
with
they're not
a
gonna get through.
new easement and then find out the project doesn't occur. I think that's what he's
Okay.
telling us.
And then, that existing vegetation that sits on that mound, I mean, I wasn't around for your original approval, close, but wasn't here for the original approval, but I dealt with that landscape mound a lot early on. Your vegetation sits up there pretty mature. What's your intent to, insofar as replacing, because it's not gonna live the way this is designed?
Well, I guess we won't be affecting any of the trees that are out there.
Well, I think maybe the plan, when we get, as we move forward, the plan needs to show the various pine trees and the other vegetation that's located on the slope. Because right now, it just shows the topography. It doesn't actually call out the location of the individual trees. So I'm sure Matt Weber can do that for us. Right.
So Bob, do you have anything? Okay, commission, you guys have any additional comments?
No, we have to move for the variances, I think, or for the variance for the parking. lot.
Yeah, I don't know that,
So what can we do for it?
I think this is probably a good information session. I don't know that, I think there's probably more that we need to give any kind of even a preliminary, my thought. I think, in general, the idea sounds okay, but I think there's a couple of issues. One is going to be your parking, because I think you're kind of tapped out on space.
Yeah, there's no, if I don't
Just
get a
start
parking
stacking
variance,
them.
I can't do this.
Put a garage, a two-story garage. Not gonna-
This is expensive as it is. This is already very,
That would
very
block the
expensive, so I pull the
aesthetics
plug
of
on it. in a minute.
The street value.
Yeah, so I guess so some of that's bigger issues, and there'll be things that, in terms of more refined plan, see some architectural, views of the drawing, see what the expansion's gonna look like.
You want to see, because I provided pictures of what it'll look like.
Were those just pictures of your existing facility?
So I went in Twinsburg, but this one's going to be, I have an identical building in Twinsburg, this is going to look just like it.
Okay, I see a couple of pictures. I guess if that's what that was, I wasn't sure what those are supposed to be pictures of. Typically, we will see some kind of elevation views.
So I'm trying not to spend that kind of money with architects, not knowing if I'm going to be able to do this.
Well,
Maybe there's something
I think
after a preliminary.
If he gets, after he gets
Yeah.
his, I mean, conceptually, I don't think, I don't want to speak for all of us, but I don't think we have any issues with it. I think it's,
Right.
if you get your parking variance, then I think then going to the next step of getting architectural elevations. Because, again, I don't foresee, if the parking variance is approved, then I think you're okay.
I guess I'm understanding, if I got the parking variance and I come back with like an architectural blueprint, you could still turn it down?
We
We would just,
We'd have to have some
regards to the architectural, but I mean, there have to be something, I think, major that we would just.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I think there may be some, back and forth there, but I think, it meets the code in terms of the use and the size, as long as you got over the parking issue, I don't know why we would have any problem with moving forward. It's just, it's working out the details. I think making sure those guys are satisfied back there. Nobody's got a problem. I don't think anybody here having a problem with the expansion of the facility.
Yeah, can I just make a comment? I think what he's asking is, before it goes too much farther, I think the thing that we have a problem with You have to have zoning approval first for that. Once you get that, then we can move on to the other pieces of that. And they're going to require, I think, plans, unfortunately, architectural plans that are showing what you're going to build. Okay, that's just standard procedure. Okay. Mr. Gugliotti mentioned about the sanitary sewer. Those things have to be itemized or taken care of, and they have to be very explicit on the drawings. Okay. We're in a position where we can't assume, yes, this is going to be done, no, this is going to be done based on what we have here. We need more comprehensive plans when we get to this point. But your first step, I think, is to get the approval from zoning department.
Yeah, even if we're not necessarily approving the sanitary, it's maybe the impacts of the sanitary lines, things that we'll see. You know, if you're dropping that in the middle of the landscape mound and it's completely disturbing, we've got to see what your plan is to make it correct, you know, at the end of the day. But I you know, if you get that variance, I don't see you getting denied, you know, unless we just, you know, you want to make it out of steel plates going around the side of the thing, and we don't like it, and you're holding hard to that.
No, I mean, the side of the pictures.
Right, it looks like that's what, you know, and I'm sure what you're proposing there in those pictures, you know, matches the rest of the building, it's probably gonna be okay. But we'll want to see that. So again, you shouldn't run out and have your guys start drawing stuff up and spending thousands of dollars, and then you get denied for parking. You need to get that parking, I think.
Like, I guess to clarify, what I'm hearing is like, when I come back, you want to see architectural blueprints.
We will.
Because then it becomes part of public record.
To get our, for us to give you approval, we're gonna need to see that stuff. Ultimate approval.
And Chairman, I don't mean to interrupt. You're looking for renderings, not the full architectural set of drawings. I think you might want to make that clear for the applicant here as well.
Yeah, there would be a difference between the renderings and the
Yeah.
construction documents. Jim, you wouldn't have to prepare construction documents, but atypically in a construction document, you're going to have elevations, and that's just, it's like Mr. Gelati said, it's a bit of a rendering. It's going to show the board how the addition's going to marry up with the existing construction, how the roof lines match, and things like that. But they're not construction documents at that point yet.
And they can give you some more guidance, you know, the building department, or even show you something that, you know, if you want to stop in, I'm sure that, you know, volunteer you guys. I'm sure you can pull out something else that's similar. This is what
100
we're looking
previous
for,
examples.
you know, it's not a stack of plans. We're looking for a couple of sheets that show us, and we can identify, like, okay, that looks good. It's going to match the rest, and then you take the rest of the way.
See, they pull from the field goals for the prior.
Yeah, I think, get your, well, he's looking at, get your BZA lined up, get your BZA approval lined up, and then, once you get that, addressing these comments, we can give you some more guidance. You know, this kind of stuff you're gonna wanna show BZA, we just can't do anything on that.
Okay.
So, But it's a, we want to see a picture, you know, and more, I guess, you know, truly proposed, I guess, you know, on your building, how it's going to match up.
Because, you know, I read bigger pictures of this, you know, 8 by 10s, that's what the back of the building is going to look like. And it's what the sides and the front looks like. Basically, I'm taking what's on the front of the building and putting it on the back of the building.
And then that's probably going to be fine. I guess we just need to, you know, with something true that's actually, you know, dimension to your building. It's, you know, something so that we know exactly, you know, that's going to be the style. That's going to be basically the elements that are going to be there. It's just.
Sorry, it's still, this was one of the big files.
Okay, so I need to come back with a plan for the sanitary sewer.
Well, I guess that's going to be part of your plan, and it's not necessarily the sanitary sewer that we necessarily care about. Right? Like I said, it's the county. It's more of what's the sanitary sewer doing to your mound in the back. Normally, we don't care typically, it's buried below the ground. We don't see it as long as these guys say it's okay, we're okay, but it's.
And you want to see a rendering, but not architecture, let's say not blueprints.
Is this like, this is the garage before, is this like an example?
Something
The garage
like that.
before you, this is all they showed us for the garage, this guy's looking at.
Yeah, I
For the
don't know
commercial buildings,
every detail, but yeah. it's
It'll be like this.
Yeah, there you go.
Commercial buildings, that's what I'm trying to find. Just an elevation of the back and side showing how it's going to, showing how it'll tie into the existing structure.
Computer's going nuts.
I heard this one like that.
But you don't have to, like they did, full detailed plans, it would just be more of like a dimension of the outside of the building and then a record elevation, something like that.
Okay,
Okay. So this, I'll make a motion to continue this to the July meeting. Is there a second? All right, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the self-storage on Bavaria, you guys? All right. Good evening. Good evening. Your names for the record?
My name's Steve Cressy, I'm the property owner.
All
My name's Frank Galante at Sipcon Engineering, and I'm Steve's engineer.
right.
Sipcon Engineering Consultants.
Okay. If you want to go ahead and just give us a brief overview, I know you were in Korea once?
I really think everybody's been in.
There's,
They just
it's
got
another one over on Freeway Drive.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I've seen.
Really bring up the competition.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Jeez. When he looks at it.
So I'm proposing to build 7 self-storage buildings here for a total of about 62,000 square foot of storage space. One of the buildings will be climate controlled, which is building A. All the other buildings are just ambient. Based on my market studies in a 3 to 5 mile radius in the area, there is significant demand for self-storage in the area. All the other facilities are 95 to 100% at max capacity. And I think bringing climate controlled facilities in a city is something that's not here currently. And plenty of residential around that could use the facility.
Okay. Well, we've got comments from the staff. Mr. President.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Report dated June 5th. So as the applicant stated, it's 7 buildings. So building A is 15,975 square feet. Building B, which is L-shaped, it's divided into a 30 by 85 or 2550 square feet and a 30 by 150 or 4,500 square feet for a total of 7,050 square feet. Building C, D, E, and F are 30 by 250 or 7,500 square feet. Building G is 9,750 square feet. It's a 30 by 325. Total area of all the storage buildings is 62,275 square feet. In addition, then an office, 45 by 45, to a little over 2,000 square foot office is proposed. Review of the site plan. I have a number of comments. No significant showstoppers, I think, just things to work through. Insofar as the use, it's acceptable. It is zoned general industrial. So the use, as it refers back to the limited industrial section, 116904B1, is permissible. But all yards need to be landscaped and provide adequate screening, which is more of a performance requirement, 116904H. As the applicant's aware, a conditional zoning certificate is required for this use pursuant to 113704, public hearing noticed in the newspaper 10 days prior to the meeting. So I think the applicant's aware that's a future item needs to be met here with the Planning Commission. I think tonight is more of a conceptual discussion, get it out on the table. The plans are fairly fleshed out. Any showstopper issues. So that'll be applied for here in the future. Just looking at it from a technical perspective, comes in off of Bavaria Road. It's two-way traffic in. As you look at the plan, right at Building B, two-way goes down to one-way traffic with parallel parking in front of Building A. It's compliance parking, so to meet the total number of parking spaces needed. My concern there, just want to see some more detail about that transition down into the one-way parking. The code requires a 22-foot drive aisle for two-way traffic, as it's, again, the two-way entrance transitions quickly down to that one-way at the north edge of Building B. Just wanted to see how that occurs, how that merges into that area. An issue to work through is section 1171-18C requires a 1,000-foot setback for the use from any residential building. The applicant provided a red dot on a map, just scaling it out and looking at it from an aerial and scaling it out on the plans. It's real close to being compliant. The 1,000 feet is not provided, but the Planning Commission does have the ability to accept a 500-foot setback. It's real close to the residential homes on River Run Drive. So as you flesh out the plans a little more, and you just provide some hard documentation other than that little red dot, exactly that 500 feet is met. And again, the commission can accept that reduced setback. I don't see any issue with accepting the 500 feet. They're pretty far away. And so, and then likely also the residential district, I mean, the back of this, you have a number of features off the back of the parking area that separate that district. I mean, even though the 500 feet's there, there's features on the property that provide more of a buffer. So I think Chairman's preference is I'll go through these and we'll come back and button them up. So, and then I don't think you're proposing any outdoor storage, but on the record, you'll just need to indicate that, and it'll be a part of your conditional zoning certificate. We would insist that that be a stipulation. You sound like you want to build a high-end climate controlled environment. The city's had some issues with, self-storage over the years, turning into outdoor storage, and hey, it's not renting, and now I'm having RVs and boats stored out. And so they just want to control that. So there'd be a stipulation that states there'd be no outdoor storage on this particular project. Parking is met, 85 spaces are needed, 86 are provided. Just the front yard parking in front of the office, that area needs to be screened and landscaped appropriately. I'm sure future plan submittals will provide all the landscaping requirements. Would like to see that from a landscape architect. And so that'd be part of the requirements for the future. Photometrics, a plan was provided, but the scale is just, it's not legible. I'm sure it'll be compliant, but historically, the commission requires a max of a half-foot candle at residential property lines. Again, it's pretty far away, but just provide that photometrics plan in a more legible format. I'm sure it'll be fine. Stormwater, again, just a comment. Details must be provided for that existing basin to ensure capacity. I'm sure the engineer will go through that. And then the criteria checklist on SP1, just a typo, just make sure it matches the actual square footage provided.
Sure.
And then future plan submittals will have to provide for architectural elevations. So again, it's very conceptual, but in terms of the idea, but I think the site plan does provide enough data. There's no action required at this time because the commission needs to fulfill that statutory requirement of the conditional zoning certificate. But other than the 500 feet, if the commission's good with that, I don't see any showstoppers for the use that's provided.
All right. We'll just do all the comments first.
Sure.
John, again?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. A few things, you guys probably all have my memo here on this topic. First one was regarding the detention pond. The document recorded with the county does indicate that it's a shared pond between the subject property and the property to the south of it. So that's the situation. I don't know if you guys have found that out yet. So the detention pond is there. I'm sure that the existing pond would have to be retrofitted and probably enlarged to accommodate the proposed development there and keep it current with, or keep it compliant with the current stormwater code. So that's number one. Number two, we would require a wetland delineation from a professional wetland scientist, since this is an undeveloped piece of property. Numbers 3 and 5 kind of go together. I probably should have put them together. That's my fault, but really involves the grading on the site. In short, I think some areas are proposed to be as steep as 2 to 1. That's too steep. And then also there's some call outs on there for some retaining walls or some potential retaining walls. And that may be okay. But Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the total height of the wall is more than 48 inches, it does need to be designed and stamped by a structural engineer. So we'd be looking for that. And then lastly, also involving stormwater here, I think the site is going to need catch basins and storm sewers and curbing around the perimeter of the parking lot, a traditional storm water drainage system to collect and convey storm water into the detention pond. For what it's worth, we just threw a similar item with Space Place here in town, and they needed to comply with that as well. So sheet flow all the way across this large site, I think would be problematic. So that's all I have, Chairman.
Thank you. Good question. Partially sprinklered or not sprinklered?
That's going to be, it's required, as required. Yeah.
Okay, well, some part of our basic requirements is our hydrant spacing is 300 feet. And your parking lot will make us way beyond that. And parking, minimum of 20 feet. 20 feet, whether the car's parked there or not. So we're gonna need that. Knox box for the front gate, the office keys normal. The other part is like on building 1 and building G, there's a stipulation for being able to reach any part or piece of the building, including the roof, within 150 feet.
What was that last part?
Within 150 feet
Of what? Within 150 feet?
of our engine. You've got definitely 3 buildings there. We've got no access to the backside.
Okay. Do you need more access than what we have provided on the front side of the building? Because it looks like if you can access from the drive, you'll be within 150 feet of the whole building, including the back. So I'm not understanding where it looks like we're less than 100 or more than 150.
Well, your one building states here you're 355 feet long.
Sure.
Or is that?
Do you need clear access on the east side of this large building and the north side of this north building?
We would appreciate clear access anywhere we can get it.
Well, we can't give it to you on the north, and then we're limited
Right.
with what we can do on the east as far as that goes. So,
Right. If we can have access to it without having to drive around.
So you say,
yeah,
we can turn,
I'm just
turn down the side aisles, is that, you're saying, like, is that distance?
So I have a plan right here. For example, let's say there's a fire right here in the center of the building that goes off, and it's 175 feet. So we're 25 feet more from here. Where are you fighting this fire from? I guess because this is way less than 150 feet.
And even here's less than 150 feet. The only place it's not is if we go all the way
Right.
and you need access.
If they're parked at one end or the other. I mean, you can't park in front of it.
The hoses won't reach around the building, I think is what he's trying to say. So if
Okay.
he parks there, he can't get his hoses all the way around there. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we would need hydrants in a couple locations.
Sure.
Within the property.
So for along the north here, we have 325 feet. You just need a place to park up here, and we need to shorten this building down, I guess, to 300 is what it sounds like, right? Because we can't provide access on the north side of the north building.
What's the terrain?
We'll revise it to meet your requirements. I just want to get that figured out before we submit for the next time. So here, we're going to have to possibly provide a fire lane that doesn't need to be paved, just needs to be accessible, right? And you guys would most likely accept pervious, drivable, GeoWeb. Joe, would that be something acceptable for fire trucks here?
Yeah, I don't know if that's acceptable for fire.
Structurally,
They probably have
pavement
to.
wise.
We'd have to look that up. I don't believe it's gonna be,
As long as it's drivable, right?
well, I'll get back to you on that.
Can it be, I guess, can it be gravel area, I guess is my question. If it's compacted 57s, is that suitable for your
No.
access? No. So you need it paved. You want it paved behind the building? How wide does that need to be?
Minimum of 20.
Okay. Here we might have to shrink the building. Okay.
And if you got, comfort control in building A, I wouldn't be bad to sprinkle that.
Are the other buildings required to be sprinkled at all?
I will have to look on past practices. I could not find that in our application as of today.
What's your triggering for sprinkling square footage? Is there a minimum or a maximum before you have to sprinkle?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And we're above it here on building A?
I can't tell you offhand.
Okay, without. Sure. We are at, yeah, 16,000 square, just under 16,975. Okay. So if it's under the minimum or the maximum required before sprinkled, it won't need to be sprinkled, correct? I'm pretty sure Steve's going to be meeting code, but not
We're
doing
gonna,
anything more than.
Yeah,
code.
the,
we're gonna
the,
work
the
with
build,
you, and it's gonna be as closest to code as we can get. I cannot give you the numbers today.
yeah.
Okay, that's not a problem.
Yeah,
But
the,
if it is under the code amount, though, it won't be required to be sprinkled. Is there any reason that it would be required?
Depends on what you're storing in there.
And since you don't get a choice of what's stored in it, we're gonna move that up to a little higher hazard.
yeah, I would think there would be like an S1. You know, it's probably gonna be a moderate hazard with something like that. They're not gonna have automobiles in there, right?
Any different than Space Place? It's identical usage, identical zone.
Yeah, people's stuff basically, but it's not a place you're gonna have like a fire load, like a gasoline.
Right, right. No, I'm just
Card.
saying as a case study sort of a thing. Are we
Yeah.
looking at Space Place as our example or not? I guess I'm wondering. Because they have this similar development that's been approved recently, shorter setbacks. We're not storing anything different than they're allowed to store.
Yeah, but the Ohio Building Code actually regulates what you're gonna be able to do in the building. It's either gonna be an S1 or an S2 type of use under the building code. And 12,000 square foot seems to be that magic number. Once you hit that number, you've got to provide automatic fire suppression within the building. And Rich, I don't think we have anything local that supersedes that. In fact, I know we actually can't in the building code. The fire code may.
Yeah, Steve will sprinkle the building if he has to, that's not a problem. We just need to figure out if it will be required or not. That's not part of my design, I'm just helping Steve through the process here.
A lot of it will come down to what you classify the building as and what it's built out of. That's what's gonna start to trigger different categories, if it's an S1, S2. So once you start categorizing it differently, that's where you're gonna, the different thresholds will come into play.
Yeah, but then you also marry that up with the type of construction.
Yeah, that's why I said the building type.
You know, so I imagine these are going to be like metal buildings,
Yeah.
probably assembled in place on a pre-poured foundation, and they just kind of build them.
At what point do we determine
They were
the class?
8 foot and 9 foot roll-up
The
doors,
architect
right?
would determine that, you'll have to let them know.
8 foot and 9 foot roll-up doors, right?
Yes. No doors.
So definitely wide enough, you can get an automobile in there.
Is automobile storage permitted in these self-storage units or prohibited or not mentioned?
Again, it depends on what you classify the
didn't see
building
it.
as.
Okay. We'll have to get into that. He'll have to get into that with his architect.
Yeah, from a use standpoint, we don't tell you what you can and can't warehouse.
Okay.
From a zoning use.
Yeah.
Building code, fire code, whole different ball wax.
Sure.
You can build it how you intend it to be used, but, you know,
His architect will be in touch with you and Mr. Roddick to decide on fire. Are there any other fire issues or concerns?
no, not at this time.
Okay.
Bob, do you have anything?
I had nothing specific.
Questions? Do you guys have questions or concerns?
I'd like to just run through, we could probably knock a couple of these out right now. So the square footage, I calculated it by CAD areas and I also ran them off. So I came up with, in your comment where you said I need to correct this, so my 1 per 800 is correct, but my square footage is implied to be wrong, correct? When you say in your comments, number 9, the criteria checklist on SB1 correctly identifies off-street parking requirements.
So look at your total building square foot table under project data.
Yep.
60,750 square foot of storage. It's 62,275.
Did you double check that?
I added it up twice. Comes up to 62,275 plus 2,025 of office for a total of 64,800.
The 45 by 45 is inside the 355 though. I'm not sure if you saw that dimension line on the plan on the east building.
Oh, that's inside that building?
Yes.
Oh, okay, then it would be less.
Yeah. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. So I think my numbers are good, which means we're still good and even more so. So we're over by 3 spaces instead of 1. So we should be good there, right?
I think your parking's fine, yeah, so it's acceptable.
Regarding parking, are the striping going to be required on a project like this, or is it okay to just provide it and then not stripe it? We don't want to encourage people to, I don't want to create a problem for him to have to call people. You're not allowed to store your car in front of your unit. They're not allowed to park there overnight. So we just like to have a self-storage. Typically, no one parks there except at the office to get their boxes or keys and whatever else they need to actually park for. So most people are coming up to their storage unit, pulling right up to it, loading and unloading. Very quick. We don't really want anybody hanging out parking. We don't want any just any loitering or any hanging out whatsoever. So we'd like to not stripe them, but we'll provide the required width. So we've got a 20-foot wide drive for one way, 10-foot wide space, and they're shown at about 20 to 22 feet long. So they vary. Kind of average them out to get a whole number of spaces along a building. So we just kind of want to, I'm glad to leave them on there, but I'd like to leave the note on there that I'd like to, instead of say may or may not be striped, I'd like to say that they're not proposed to be striped for the reasons that I just stated.
Well, I've never been asked if we can not stripe parking before. It's a first. Yeah, I mean, I think the zoning code implies that they're dedicated parking spaces, and to be dedicated parking spaces, you would have them striped. What happens after planning commission? You know,
Okay.
but it requires it to be on the plan.
Right, okay, very good, I understand. The reasoning, I hope you understand, is we want to help. We understand there were concerns from the other self-storage, so we're trying to eliminate those. That's why we don't have a parking lot sitting here on the west, because we could, by code, build a nice parking lot here that I'm sure would fill up with something, but we know that you don't want that to happen, so we've gone out of our way to avoid that, actually, so. And going further with that, I'd like to put the spaces where they are used nearer to the actual buildings themselves, but I don't want people leaving their car there, and then he has to deal with it, you know. That would be too convenient for somebody and a problem for my client, so. I saw that number 7 and 8, which isn't on here anymore. Those were my site assessment notes on a prior PDF version. Were not acceptable. I presume that was the drainage runoff and the 1% building slope. Is the 1% building slope not permitted here for some reason? Because it's standard for these long, narrow buildings, instead of to run the gutters up, down, up, down, up, down, you run them at 1%. You can't see it at all. In fact, on a site like this, it'll probably look like it's running the other way because of the existing slopes everywhere. So nothing looks out of level, nothing looks out of ordinary. You can't tell a 1% slope by eye either way. In fact, you'll guess it wrong sometimes. So I'm just wondering if that's 7 and 8, if that's what your note was referring to. Note number, your memo, note number 4. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Gigliotti, note number 4.
You're talking about note 4 on my memo.
I think that
Okay.
was where we saw, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought it was on Mr. Brown's memo.
Yeah, so my note number 4 is with not necessarily the finished floor of the building, but with regard to the
Runoff.
Yeah, the runoff, correct.
Sure. And these storm leads, this is just something conceptual. I'm gonna take the MEP plans and I design off of theirs. If they need to design a lateral, I'll design the lateral, and we'll go from there. As far as this traffic situation you're concerned with, the one-way actually will start here. This guy is gonna be two-way, he's gotta get out. So the one-way actually doesn't start till here. This is two-way, this is one-way here. So that's what that's gonna look like, and I'll stripe that out in more detail.
Yeah, so you have two choices, 19-foot access aisle or 22 feet, depending upon your parking.
Right.
Two-way access, it's 22 feet.
Sure.
One-way access is 19 feet.
Sure.
I just don't fully understand if it's met at that location, but you could do a little detail to
Yeah,
show that.
there's no space here there's no space right here. The first space starts right here. So this is 30 feet wide. So this transition from two-way, because you're gonna have, that's what you're gonna have. So it's 30 feet wide where we're transitioning. It's 20 feet wide where it's one way. So.
Yeah, you can add a detail or a blow
That's
up.
okay though, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's
I'm
probably
not looking for
fine.
a 50-foot tape or anything like that. I just want to make sure that.
No, I just want to make sure it's
Sure. Absolutely.
functional.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
it meets the code.
Okay. Is there a minimum foot candle for the site? I know we've got to get down to the half-foot candle at this property line. Is there a minimum
It's at the property
in the
line.
internal? Do you need a minimum?
At the property lines where we're concerned.
You want
So they have to
maximum.
be, yeah, so it has to be fully cut off, 100% cut off.
Sure.
Downward cast.
Yep.
Not shining light, light will go 500 feet.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't want to hear neighbors complaining that, the city allowed a bunch of
Yep.
lights in their backyard. So just be cognizant, shielded, downward cast, half a foot if you can't achieve that, I don't know what the problem is.
We're going to achieve that. That's not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
We're thinking on the other end in terms of meeting your minimum safety requirements as far as lighting the place up. Because we understand the light pollution issue with, to the west. frankly, there's gonna be so much green here, I don't think they're gonna see any speck of light, but we will meet that requirement way over here. In fact, it'll be 0 over here, because there's no reason for this to be lit up over here this far. As bright as we are here, even if we were 10-foot candles here at the building, we would still be, after we showed everything, we'll be down to 0 at the property line, so.
Yeah,
Wanna
that's
make sure we
fine.
get a
Again,
minimum.
I just left my microscope in the other office. I couldn't tell on the plan,
Yeah, that
so
was- that
it's
was
probably
pretty
just
fun.
fine.
I gotcha. And then we've got the location to the house is actually the survey distance. I pulled that, I don't note that on the plan for the next submittal, but that's the survey distance. My survey base has it. It was shown on the 32 by 42, which isn't here because your max size is 24 by 36. But I had this in PDF form that showed the house and its dimension to the house, and that's actually from the survey. That's not just estimated or aerial or anything like that. So that's a true dimension, and then this is a true dimension because this is a survey base. So
Yeah, so if you could show a true dimension of 500, the commission still needs to opine if that's acceptable, but
yep.
I mean, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be.
Yep.
But you just need to show the documentation.
Perfect. We do have a proposed curb. It's just not labeled. That's a double line. It didn't show up as a double line here at this scale, but it is a proposed curb. And then as far as the screening at the 7 spaces, at the office space near the very road, do we have to screen all sides of it? As in, you don't want anybody seeing it from this side or this side?
You want to screen it from the south and east.
Okay.
So we don't want to see a car in the parking lot, we want to shield that car.
Yeah, we want it to be screened. I mean, when you say we don't want to see one, screening doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to see it, but the eye is going to go to the landscaping and not a bunch of cars sitting in the front yard.
Very good.
Plus, it gives a curb appeal. I mean, you want to try to spruce up your entrance, you know, I would think. Yeah.
You know, Mr. Chairman, if I could add, kind of coming back to the fire sprinkler, maybe, Rich, you probably want to see where that standpipe is going to be. We should flush it out in the beginning so that you know what the fire department connection would be. So that's something that I think should go on to the next plan.
Yeah. I'll get with Joe here after the meeting just to figure out how far we have to take this set into the civil full set to get various approvals. We're going preliminary and final, right? There should be 2 formal approvals. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could, I mean, typically, you could do the preliminary with your conditional zoning certificate. It's more of a conceptual type approval, and then final. That's full blown. I noticed you didn't have any architecture, so
Right.
you know you'll need that. Your elevations, materials, that kind of thing.
Sure. I guess I was just reading strictly from the code, what's required. So for this was supposed to be conceptual. Are we going to be submitting again for preliminary? Is that what's required here? And if so, it seems like the plan level of detail is going to have to increase. And like I said, I'll get with Joe on the civil plans, but he'll need to know, is he going to need building elevations the next time he comes in here?
So I mean, there's conceptual preliminary, the same thing under the code. As far as elevations, I'll have to take a look and see if that's required for.
It wouldn't be a bad idea to have them for at least unless you're going for your final ones, but that way if there's any, you can address any of the concerns, but I think it's not.
So we can go for final? I thought this was a discussion meeting, but not an actual, I guess I'm just trying to figure out the next process here. Is conditional use going to be approved through zoning or through planning?
That's who this is.
That's through this board right here? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's a use issue. So the commission can place conditions and safeguards on your use.
Perfect.
So let's say they didn't think 500 feet, you know, that you're at 502 and they say, okay, that's okay, but you need to add, you know, pines and evergreens along that, you know, western property line to ensure light doesn't, you know, trespass, to ensure sound, noise, smell, whatever it may
Absolutely.
be. They can, reasonable conditions and safeguards.
Sure.
That's a use issue.
Okay.
And then you'll have a plan that goes with that. This is fine. You're gonna revise these. And they can grant you preliminary at the same time. That can be one meeting and you can come back for final plan approval for your final. And then typically, no one ever buttons up plans 100%. And so if the commission's okay with it, they'll approve it subject to, as long as it's not showstopper issues.
Sure.
We're not seeing, other than the fire issue, which is a technical issue you need to work through, there's no zoning showstopper issues here that I think, we need to see what your architecture looks like. If you're proposing tin cans, that may or may not be something that's acceptable. We need to see that.
Sure, absolutely.
So the next meeting can be a preliminary and conditional use permit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you should do it that way.
So we can't get any preliminary today without conditional use, contingent on conditional use and setback? Or can we talk about the setback today? Is there any issue? Does the board or does the planning commission have any issue with a 500-foot setback here?
That's a good thing for them to opine on tonight.
So I have a comment about that. I don't have a problem with the distance. I appreciate your picture taken in May, but I'm thinking about what that's gonna look like in February. Because I don't think there's a whole lot of evergreen, if any evergreen there. So I'd really like to see when you guys are working on landscaping, some type of evergreen, maybe combined with mounding, whatever. It seems like you have a lot of space to work there. You might be displacing a lot of soil and they could just build that up there and maybe save you some money not trucking it off. But I think that with sound and light would really help that on that side. That's my comment.
Can you see through here? At all?
It's pretty dense in the winter too. There's a lot of.
All of this vegetation goes away, right?
Yeah. Well,
Here.
a lot of it's pretty.
Is it still
big.
6, 7,
Yeah,
8
it's
feet
still
tall?
pretty big.
'Cause I just don't think you can see anything, but other than that, I mean, we'll provide the screening if required in addition to all of this, but there's a ton of it here. It's wooded. This is grown about 7, 8 feet tall with vegetation in that
The
area.
house is over here and they have their own woods back here. So the residents have woods. I have some woods.
Yeah, I think you got the area on the other side here.
Yeah.
Look at that. I mean, you can see how dense it is here. I don't know if everybody can see that, but
Yeah, but I would just caution everyone, the self-storage area is gonna sit at a much higher elevation than the residential to the west.
I think it's when it's got leaves on the trees. That's where I'm going with this. So
Sure, no problem.
Especially like in the thinner area, just look at the area, there's definitely, it's real deep here, and it gets a little, there's some thinness here, I mean, if you're.
yeah, this is the neighbor to the south or the north, and then this is the subject site here, and then this is all wooded here, and then this is all about 6, 7 feet tall. And that's
Pond right there.
Yeah.
We could do screening.
Yeah, that's not a problem to do screening.
I think that would go for me a long way to approving the 500 foot.
Yeah, some screening at the west end of the paved driveway.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was the only question, concern I had.
Are you got anything?
This point down.
I think, yeah, it seems like it's, this is doable, I think. I think it can work.
Yeah, Chairman, if I could quickly to answer Frank's question, I know you were wanted to chat here after the meeting. I would say there's 5 comments on my memo. I think comments 1 and 2 are really for you guys to be aware of, and they just need to be achieved before the building department issues a final permit. Not necessarily items that you have to achieve before planning commission can give a preliminary approval and then throw it to the administration. But items 3, 4, and 5, I think we would want to see on the next submittal. Hopefully that helps you out, helps you to strategize here over the next month.
Regarding those retaining walls, is there anything prohibiting us from building a building that would have a retaining wall where they are doable? 'Cause there's going to be a retaining, buildings act as retaining walls all the time, especially when the slope is higher in the back, right? So I don't know, it's outside of my scope of design, but he's going to want to value engineer. He's not going to want to build a retaining wall, and if he can have a building act as a retaining wall, as long as it's designed appropriately. Is there anything prohibiting that from happening?
You're saying it's like a basement, but not a basement?
Well,
Wall there.
it just grade is above finished floor, sloped off. There's going to be a foundation drain, under drain in the center of a swale here. This will all swale down this way. And this stuff's not basically remaining as is, except that we've got to regrade this. We've got a big slope coming towards this building. So this is going to get sloped back this way, so it does this. And it comes down to here, which we don't have to do any stormwater management because we're not going to be making any of this impervious at all. But if we need to have the retaining walls designed by me or someone else, that's an issue for him and a cost as compared to his architect and structural engineer handling retaining issues with buildings.
Yeah, I mean, Bob, I don't know what your thoughts are, but it sounds like if you're engaging the architect and the structural engineer, and I think if, it's a stamped design by the structural engineer, I think that would be equivalent to if you had a standalone retaining wall that was more than 48 inches and you submitted your stamped design.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's how you approach it.
But if the foundation is being used as the retaining wall and it's exposed, right?
Well, you imagine it.
It's gonna go down below?
It would have to. Your footings will have to at a minimum be below cross level.
But there's gonna be some that's exposed.
No, you're thinking of the opposite, Mr. Front. So here's what we would have in an exaggerated way. So front side not retained, footer's going to be down here. Top side, we're holding earth back. So
that wall of the building has to be a structural.
Yeah, it'd be designed for that.
yes,
Be designed
So
for the
you'd have
earth pressure.
swale there, an under drain to
Yeah,
catch all this water.
Yeah, I understand.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was just more, if it was gonna be exposed,
Yep.
I'd wanna see some treatment of that.
Sure,
On the
absolutely.
side.
Yeah,
Okay.
not a block wall.
Yeah, not a block wall.
So for his next appearance here, he needs building elevations. You want to see grades? You want to see a full grading plan?
Well,
or just
I
wanna see
think,
this
yeah.
Fleshed out a little bit more.
We need to have it a little more hashed out, and if there's gonna be some retaining walls, we need to see where those are. Because I'd hate for planning commission to give an approval for what we have now, then the site gets developed and all of a sudden there's big retaining walls everywhere.
Yep.
You know,
Understood.
that asks a question. And then, the storm sewer drainage system would need to be shown on there, at least in a preliminary, single line fashion. You don't have to size each sewer or every invert yet at this point, so.
Very good. There's really only two concerns. Everything else we're talking about are minor details to me. I know I can make all this work. I'm concerned about setback and conditional use, really. Those are the really only two issues that are out of my control. Everything else is within my control site-wise. I know I can make the utilities, the grading, retaining walls work. It's just a matter of Steve working with his architect and me to make all that happen, so. Does anyone have an issue with the 500 feet?
I do not, if you're handling regular plans.
I agree. Well, it's landscape appropriate and mounting, whatever necessary. I would say that by the time you come back next time, have a landscape plan and have that kind of look at.
Sure.
And a good understanding so that we can then give you a good answer, like, yes, we're good with it, or you think you need to add something, whatever the case may be.
Building elevations, landscape. I'll flesh out some more of the grading, so that Joe's happy, and we'll look at fire, yep.
Fire mentioned you wanted hydrant or two? Is there a
300-foot spaces. Fires come up for knockbox, 300 foot, and then the truck's gotta be within 150 feet of where the maximum distance, so we're gonna either have to provide some sort of access back here. It doesn't need to go the whole way of the building, but as long as they can get to it from 150 feet. We'll take this down to whatever we have to.
And Steve, you could file for the conditional use and the preliminary plan on the same application. I'd advise you to go ahead and put together a written narrative. Probably want to go through our code under the conditional use, but a written narrative describing what you're going to do and how it's going to be harmonious and all that other stuff that goes along with that.
The deadline for the next meeting is the 20th.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make that, so obviously in August, I'm assuming.
113704 outlines conditional zoning certificate requirements, specifically as Mr. Rodick was saying, B 1 through 6. Put some narrative together how that complies or comports with that section.
Okay.
Hours of operations, 24 hours, I'm assuming. Are you gonna have staff 24 hours a day? How many employees? How is access? Is it gated up in the front? Is it not gated? It's wide open? How do you handle security?
Yep.
Those are things that would be part of a conditional use that the commission would have. So just be prepared. I'd agree, wait till August, just do it right. Do it once, do it right. In those meetings, public hearings typically start at 5:15 as opposed to 5:30.
I'll make a motion to continue this to the August meeting.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Just, Mr. Chairman, I want to note for the record, your continuance was based on the applicant's need to address items in the code.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. You get to.
All right, we've got one more issue, one more, it's Dominion. And I think our presenter is Mr. Rodick.
Oh, I'm going to defer to Mr. Gelati.
Oh, okay.
No, actually, we were
Flows.
approached by Dominion for a technical change to the site. And I'll let Joe get into that a little bit more. I know administratively, you'd probably allow us to go ahead and approve this. I think I see this as kind of a substantial modification to the site plan. So we had him submit a plan, and I think I'll let Mr. Gelati take it from there.
Yeah, sure. So I guess first a brief history. Dominion came before the Planning Commission, boy, it had to be a year ago probably now. And you guys all know where the site is, I'm sure, on Shepherd Road. And before they started any work, it was mostly a grass field, but there was X amount of the area was already covered with gravel before any of this started. What was previously approved by Planning Commission was to take that field, and when they were done, they were going to have, let's say, 3 times X of the site was going to be covered with gravel. Of course, my comment and your approval was conditioned upon creating the necessary stormwater detention pond at the rear of the site to accommodate for the additional gravel surface that Dominion wanted to create. Well, I think their design engineers went round and round, and they really weren't able to create the detention that was necessary, I think really is what it came down to. So they came back to us, and instead of creating a detention pond, they're going to use grass permeable pavers for their little access road to get around the site. The plan that they've given to us now actually shows that the site will have less than X amount of gravel area on the site when they're all done. So theoretically, they'll have less stormwater runoff from the site, and thus by code, they actually don't need any stormwater detention. They'd actually have a little less stormwater runoff and theoretically a little more soaking into the ground, which is fine by me. I mean, we're always happy when sites become less impervious, right? It doesn't happen very often. So, so that's where we're at. And I think Bob and I took the opinion that we just wanted to bring it to the planning commission. Little changes, I know you guys trust us, but something a little larger in nature like this. Somewhat substantial change to what you guys had approved last year. So hence the reason we put it at the end of the agenda tonight. But I'm comfortable with what they've proposed. I don't even know that this actually requires a vote or anything. I mean, I guess I'll leave that up to you guys, but we just want to let you guys know what's happening there on the Dominion site. And Brian, I don't know if any official action is needed by the planning commission.
Well, I think it's sorry. I think it's probably safe for them to accept the recommendation of staff as an amendment to the final approved site plan. Because it does say that any departure from the approved plan can be cause for basically revoking the permit.
Okay.
And drainage provisions are part of the approved plan.
Oh, yeah.
And I agree, what they're proposing sounds like it's certainly better than what
I
we.
like it.
So I'd just say some formal recognition by the commission on the record would be safest.
Did they submit anything to show that they're justify the reduction, that they don't need a detention basin?
They've submitted plans, that basically shows the site, the pre-existing conditions of the site, and then what the conditions of the site or the ground cover is gonna be when they're done, and the gravel surface area actually reduces, and the grass area actually increases, so. And, I mean, I see we have the plans here now, they're the tiny little drawings, you wouldn't be able to read them. I can't read them either, but I'm sure that Susan probably could provide us with full-size copies if you needed, so. And they've even got a little table on their drawings that shows the map, if you will, as to what it's gonna look like.
Is the paver area, is that something that's gonna be significantly used, or is it kind of the back?
How often are they gonna use it is the actual question.
Yeah,
I mean,
is it gonna hold up?
Obviously, I don't know. I don't, in the past, the old gas piping setup, I mean, they really weren't out there very much.
Yeah.
I mean, I drive by it all the time. You never really saw their service vehicles there now. I mean, maybe.
Very seldom.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they may see a little more action, but I don't think it's gonna become I-271. If that's what we're concerned about.
I was just concerned more about them holding up and actually grass actually growing in the
Mhm.
pavers, or is
Yeah.
it, man, there's
Oh, yeah.
20 guys pulling in every morning.
Yeah,
20
and it
guys
just
pulling
gets,
back over,
the
and
grass
it's-
gets
it's
destroyed, yeah.
It's
Make that
like
a
concrete
condition.
practically, when you're
Yeah.
actually gonna have a more compact surface than with gravel, but you don't think it's gonna get
Yeah, I don't
too bad.
really see that happening.
Just make it a condition though, that if we
Could.
start to see that it's becoming an issue, that the grass has been
Yeah,
deteriorated. that
if
it
they're not
needs to
able to
be-
maintain the
Yeah.
grass pavers properly, then either we need new grass pavers or some form of detention.
Right.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I kind of like that. Maybe that should be put into the formal action. That they need to be, the grass pavers shall be properly maintained by the property owner. I think that would be the phrase.
Properly maintained and aesthetically pleasing to some extent, I guess we could say that, because I mean,
Yeah.
Well, it's part of being properly maintained,
Yeah.
I would say. I look at
It's just a
it,
grass field that they mow
Yeah.
every few weeks, I guess, at least in the past, that's what they had done. So it's not really a landscaped area.
right.
They go
Just a
through with the
field.
game mower, I'm
Yeah.
sure, so.
I sort of look at it, if they had come to the commission originally with that that style, you would have approved it, subject to
Sure.
administrative approval, so 6-1 doesn't,
Yeah.
but having the you know, these be maintained. I think stipulations, probably just smart. Everything's to preserve the record for the future.
Correct. I will make a motion that we approve with the condition that the new permeable paver areas just be maintained throughout the length of this property.
I'll second it.
Anything else?
I think I heard Mr. Wallner state that it was that you were approving the amended final site plan previously approved.
That's correct.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
All in favor? Aye. And Bob called 2 hours and we were moving along so good at the start. I'm like, he's way off. He was about 30 seconds short. I thought we were this first one, we're just. We were on a roll for a minute. Yeah.
More than one area has to be modified. I'll just see what it says.
Yeah, I mean, conceptually, the idea, I think, is fine, but you typically do it in a district and not just for one building.
Yeah.
And so if you're gonna do it in the whole district, it seems like a bad place to have that.
Sir, I think it was your birthday after the last meeting or something. I think I drove down your street. Was it your birthday like after the last meeting? Like sometime in the next week?
Oh, there you go.
Might have been a giant sign in the front of your house.